Long before history began, before names, before stories, before even memory, there was a meeting between two giants of the Ice Age, one made of flesh and fur and thunder, the other of fragile skin and trembling hands. It was the first time a human saw a mammoth, and it changed everything. Picture the world 40,000 years ago. The earth was colder, wilder, and hungrier. Glaciers stretched like frozen walls across continents. The wind carved plains of snow into silent oceans of white. In this brutal age, humans were not rulers. They were wanderers, thin, desperate, and outnumbered. Predators watched from every shadow. Death was constant, swift, and merciless. But among them walked one, a figure with a spark of something new. He had no name, no tribe, we remember, only a mind that looked outward, that asked why. One morning, as mist rolled across a frozen valley, he saw movement, not the swift shape of a deer or the stalk of a wolf, but something immense, something that made the air feel smaller. Through the fog came the shape of the mammoth, towering, ancient, covered in hair that glowed like gold in the weak sunlight. Its tusks curved like crescents of ivory moonlight, and for the first time a human beheld a creature that seemed carved from the bones of the earth itself. He froze. Not in fear, not yet, in awe. That moment, that gaze between species, was more than curiosity. It was the spark of imagination. Until then, humans had known danger, hunger, survival. But this was something else. The mammoth wasn't just food. It was symbol. To truly understand what this meant, we have to imagine the mind of that first witness. No books, no myths, no language complex enough to describe wonder, only the pulse of thought. For the first time, his world expanded beyond need. He felt small, yes, but he also felt part of something vast. The mammoth was proof that there was more to life than the fight for warmth, that the world held mysteries greater than any tribe, any hunt, any hunger. That realization, as simple as it seems, changed humanity. It was the first spark of awe, the foundation of every story, every god, every dream that would come after. The woolly mammoth was not just an animal. It was a monument in motion. Standing more than 3 meters tall, weighing over 6 tons, it ruled the frozen plains. It moved through snow like a ship through water, slow and unstoppable. Its breath steamed in clouds. Its tusks dug through ice in search of grass. Its calls echoed like thunder across the tundra. For the human who saw it, this was not a monster. It was a mirror, a reflection of survival itself. The mammoth endured cold and hunger, just as he did. It was everything he wanted to be, strong, patient, eternal. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a dangerous thought began to grow. Could such a giant ever be brought down? At first, that thought was blasphemy. To harm a mammoth was to challenge nature itself. But hunger has no reverence, and soon awe gave way to ambition. The tribes began to follow the herds, watching, learning. They studied how the mammoth moved, how it ate, how it rested. They learned patience, a new kind of intelligence. For days they stalked, waiting for weakness. They carved spears of stone, hardened them in fire, and painted the tusks of their prey on cave walls, not as trophies, as prayers. The first hunt was chaos. Men screamed. The ground shook. The mammoth charged, trampling, roaring, a storm of muscle and rage. Many died. Some fled. But one spear found its mark. The giant fell, and with that fall the world tilted. The mammoth had been a god. Now it was meat. The sacred had become practical. Humanity had crossed another invisible line, from witness to master. But the mammoth never truly left. Even after the hunt ended, it lived on, in memory and art, in fear. Deep inside the caves of Europe we still see its outline scratched in ochre and ash. Massive bodies, curling tusks, gentle eyes, drawn not as enemies but as ancestors. The mammoth became the first muse of humankind. Those cave drawings were not just pictures. They were testimonies, proof that humans could capture what they saw and keep it forever, that the mind could preserve what time would destroy. Every image of a mammoth on a cave wall whispered the same truth. We remember. That act, to remember, is what separates us from every other creature on earth. And it all began with that first gaze between a fragile hunter and a colossal beast. But even giants fall. As the ice melted and forests rose, the mammoths began to disappear. Their world shrank as ours expanded. The tundra turned to swamp, the grass to moss. Herds dwindled, calves grew weaker, and finally, one by one, they vanished into the snow they once ruled. We think extinction is a modern idea, but for ancient humans it was personal. They watched their gods die. They saw the great herds fade, the thunder of the plains grow silent. The last mammoths lived on a lonely island in the Arctic Ocean, surrounded by ice and sea. Tiny compared to their ancestors, they survived for thousands of years after the rest were gone, until one day there were none left to remember. But perhaps in some distant cave a human dreamed of them still. You might think the mammoth is gone, but it isn't. It lives in our myths, in the giants, the gods, the beasts of legend. It lives in our stories of strength and loss, of nature's vastness and our fragile courage. The human who first saw a mammoth didn't just encounter an animal, he encountered the sublime, that terrifying beauty that makes us realize how small we are. Every time we look at a mountain, a storm, or the ocean, we relive that moment. Every time we build, explore, or dream of the impossible, we are still chasing that same feeling of awe. The mammoth taught us that the world could be both terrible and magnificent, that to live is to face something larger than ourselves, and to keep going anyway. Thousands of years later, when mammoths were gone, the stories remained. Children grew up hearing of creatures that shook the earth when they walked. Elders spoke of spirits with long ivory teeth and eyes like the moon. In those tales, the mammoth became something greater than real. It became eternal. The people who once hunted them now worshipped their ghosts. Bones became totems. Tusks became ornaments. And the image of the mammoth lived on in legend, not as prey, but as ancestor. Even today, when we see their frozen remains unearthed from Siberian ice, we feel it. That same silent reverence, as if we are looking not at an animal, but at a lost part of ourselves. Because maybe we are. The mammoth and the human, two branches of survival, crossing for a heartbeat in time, both intelligent, both social, both builders of memory. But one disappeared, the other endured. We often tell ourselves that we conquered nature, but perhaps we simply inherited its ghosts. In every skyscraper, every machine, every idea of power, there's still a trace of that first encounter. The awe of standing before something greater, and the desire to understand it, to control it, to become it. We didn't just hunt the mammoth, we absorbed it. Its strength, its endurance, its silence, all live on in us. We are the mammoth now, giants made of thought instead of bone, and that's both our gift and our curse. Imagine the first man again, standing in that icy dawn, the mist curling around him, the cold biting his lungs. Before him, the mammoth moves, slow, deliberate, immense. He feels no fear now, only understanding. He knows this creature is not his enemy, not his god. It is his reflection, a different shape of the same struggle. For a brief, eternal moment, they share the same breath. Then the mammoth turns, vanishing into the fog. The man watches until the last shimmer of fur disappears, and something within him changes forever. He will try to draw it, to remember it, to tell others, but he will never truly capture it. The weight, the silence, the grace. It will live only as memory, passed from one fire to the next, until it becomes story, then myth, then history. And that is how civilization begins, not with a weapon or a wall, but with a moment of wonder. The first human who saw a mammoth didn't know what he'd found. He didn't know that this meeting would echo through every age, through art, through fear, through love of the unknown. But that's what it means to be human, to look at something vast and untouchable and still reach toward it, to feel awe and to turn that awe into creation. The mammoth gave us that gift. It taught us to imagine, to dream beyond hunger, to seek beauty even in danger. It's strange to think that the birth of wonder came from fur and frost and silence. But maybe that's exactly how all great things begin, not with understanding, but with amazement. The first man who saw a mammoth didn't just witness a creature, he witnessed the beginning of humanity's soul. Today, the mammoth sleeps beneath ice, its bones preserved in frozen time. Scientists dig them up trying to read the story of a vanished world. Some dream of bringing them back, resurrecting the giants that once walked beside us. Maybe that's not just science, maybe it's longing. Because deep down we miss them, the beings that made us feel small and alive at once, the creatures that reminded us that beauty and terror can share the same breath. When we look at a mammoth skull in a museum, we're not just looking at a relic. We're looking into a mirror, one that reflects both our past and our destiny. The man who first saw a mammoth is long gone. His bones are dust, his story lost. But the feeling he felt, that trembling awe, still lives in us. It's there when we stand before a mountain, when we look up at the stars, when we face the unknown and whisper, "I want to understand." That was his gift to us. And that's why, even after 40,000 years, the first encounter between man and mammoth still echoes in our blood. Because in that single silent moment, we discovered wonder,